This episode of our This Week in XR podcast is sponsored by Zapper. Zapper is one of the world's leading XR companies. Over the past 12 years, they've won numerous awards for memorable campaigns. They've democratized AR by making tools and SDKs that anyone can use. And they created ZapBox, the world's most affordable mixed reality headset. Most recently, Zapper worked with Unilever to create an enhanced QR code called Accessible QR, which enables packaged goods to speak to the blind and partially sighted. If you're thinking XR, give the team at Zapper a call or visit zapper.com to see how they can help you on your XR journey. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, December 20th, 2024, and it's time for This Week in XR, show number 221. And we have a fantastic, it's going to be a great show. I'm very excited.
It's our last show of the year? It's our last show of the year?
It's our year in review show, and our guest is the great Shelly Palmer,
Yes.
Professor Shelly Palmer, and one of the foremost consultants about XR and AI in the world.
Yeah.
So we'll get to him in a minute. Big news week. It was finally announced that Perplexity has raised $500 million, so that gives them a $9 billion valuation. I am not a Perplexity user. I am an addict of OpenAI, and OpenAI really does get to know you. It doesn't really write my column automatically, but it summarizes things really well. And as you know, there's nothing better for an opinion column than organizing information and summarizing information. So I was wondering what you guys, what your take was on Perplexity, and is the $9 billion justified? Should Google worry?
I mean, I'm an Anthropic. I'm Claude. The way you've built relationship with OpenAI, I built more of a relationship with Claude, with the Anthropic, the agent, as it were. In terms of the valuations, I read a report a few months ago from Sequoia, one of the big VC investors, that was making the point that there is sort of an impossibility to see a return on all of this amount of funding. That it just the numbers don't add up, even if they can, maybe Meta will build an ad model around this that kind of makes sense, or Google will build an ad model around this that makes sense. But from a paid user standpoint and a paid instance standpoint, it's just hard to justify the funding that's going in and the valuations that are popping out the other side.
Well, I think the best explanation I could give is what Jeff Bezos talked about, which is the penalty of not betting enough on things that are super high risk that it could have 1,000x, 10,000x returns. So these swings, and I'm obviously conflicted because I'm in this space, but these swings are investors looking for the thing that actually is transformational in a multi-tens of trillions of dollar change in the economy. So it could be really, if you pick the winner, it's cheap. And the idea is that they're prepared to lose a lot. Investors realize we're going to have a lot of losers, but if we get one of those 1,000 or 10,000 Xers, it more than overcomes everything. So rational, I would say East Coast investors are looking for the 3x. The PE guys want to have a 2x or a 5x. This is all about a couple of these players are going to be 10,000 Xers, 1,000 Xers. A number of companies will be 100 Xers. So they're just swinging hard, and they're swing 10 times, swing 100 times. If you hit the 1,000x, it pays back. So I think that's what it's all about. So the valuation is almost whatever. It's kind of silly. It's like the valuation is a whatever, because if you hit it, it's really big, and if you don't get there, you are a whatever too. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think this is the Bezos philosophy that's permeated a lot of the more extreme, almost like Bitcoin level thinking, right? If you were in on Bitcoin 10, 15 years ago, you were thinking it's going to go to 100,000 per coin. And you were right, and a lot of people were wrong, but they were basically betting on 100,000x. That's what's going on.
So you think
it's Vegas. I mean, it's Vegas craziness. That's what Gen AI is. It's people. There's rational investors in the mix who are looking for the triples, the doubles, the 10xers in the midst of it, but there are the extreme Vegasers who are looking for the 1,000, 10,000 Xers. They'll get some of them.
In terms of extreme Vegas, let's talk about ChatGPT for a minute. they are making a ton of money. So their valuation may not be as crazy, although they're spending it as fast as they're making it. Um, they they released Sora a couple of weeks ago. I mean, they continue to relentlessly innovate. They've added search, um, and it looks like their biggest competitors are coming after them uh, because of their greatest vulnerability, which was its origin story as a not-for-profit company.
Mhm.
I will say this, that I do think we are in a moment of time where there will be new Googles and new Metas emerge. I'm not saying those companies are so powerful they're going to remain, uh, to be vital to our lives, but there will be another one. It could be OpenAI. So Elon Musk, who has XAI, and Zuckerberg, who's investing, hundreds of billions of dollars in AI. So much so it kind of spooked investors when it was announced. So, do you think OpenAI has something to worry about here?
Well, what's is it with current valuation is 150 billion? Is that right?
Something like yes.
They do. I mean, let's contrast them to WeWork for example. Um, there was this idea that WeWork was generating revenue, but if you really look closely at the financials, it would never actually turn a profit, and that turned out to be the case. Uber, on the other hand, was reconfigured to make money. Right,
Yeah.
Dara came in and did a brilliant job, and the thing is a high value company, and it earns revenue, and it's a real business now. So I think OpenAI is actually more like Uber. It could turn into a real business. I don't know if it's going to be a 10x on 150 billion, but like I think there's too much there for it not to just become absorbed by Microsoft or something like that. By the way, I think the reason it is the way it is all about the Biden administration and the regulations around acquisition. If you look carefully, acquisitions have been stifled and IPOs have been stifled, and that's been clogging the capital markets. This is just like a fact of what's happened. Like if you look at the M&A market,
I
all the
think this
big
is they I
acquirers,
think they're gonna drive this case right to the Supreme Court, and
they
this is
will.
an activist conservative court, and my take is, between Elon and Meta's money, they're gonna rule against OpenAI, and
Oh, on that one, yeah, yeah.
what that is gonna mean is all of a sudden, the OpenAI Foundation will be required to license it to anybody willing to pay for it.
Or
Mhm.
Mike or Charlie, let's say at the same time, the free market libertarians who have massive influence in DC and Palm Beach now also have their say. It's the same people. M&As will happen, and this will shove OpenAI right into the arms of Satya. Like,
Yeah,
why
just
doesn't he
from
own it
Microsoft.
already? Because he can't, because of government regulation. He would have owned OpenAI a long time ago. Like, he's in this kookamami structure just because of government regs. So I think you can't argue that Microsoft shouldn't buy OpenAI as a monopoly, because look at all the other players and how much money's going on in there. So I think you're going to see a lot of acquisitions happening. And the rational thing is, why doesn't OpenAI really is Microsoft, but for government regs?
So here's one right in your strike zone, Ronnie, to follow to
Uh
follow
oh.
that one up.
Uh
Um,
oh.
OpenAI is not a clean model. Most language models are not clean models. And it matters in Hollywood because obviously they have a lot to lose. A lot of them are being sued all over the place already. YouTube is kind of freaking out about the ad industry, holding them responsible for all the AI generated material against which they're selling advertising. So the need for clean models is going to spread across, it's not limited to Hollywood, obviously, and there are a lot of lawsuits going on. It seems to me that sort of the next steps, and maybe predicting 2025 here, is that clean models are going to be a thing. That's
I would have
synth B, I
to.
guess.
Well, okay. Let me agree on one thing, and let's just define for our listeners and our readers and our viewers. I don't know if we have readers, but yeah, you can have like OpenAI turn this into text if you wanted. Um, I think clean models where you can have attribution to what taught the model, what's in there, is going to be key for many industries. But here's the thing. There is also an argument that the atomized substance of data at this huge scale, where it just becomes like these like tiny molecules everywhere, like in a huge blender. someone's going to make the argument in the Supreme Court that at some scale, that atomized knowledge base is fair use. And that will
fair
upend
use is a very
copyright.
powerful,
That's going to upend copyrights.
argument, unless your pockets have been lined by the opposite argument.
No, but Charlie, that's going to upend everything about what we know about IP and trademarks and everything. Because, look, people do the same thing. Like, you grow up reading and learning, and your brain has all of this stuff in it, and you synthesize it. And they're arguing that's what these gigantic unclean models are doing. I'm on the side of the clean models prevailing, but there are really good people in terms of like their ability to argue in front of the Supreme Court who would argue at a real scale, this atomized data set is so small and so blended that it is becoming something new, right? And it's almost like a Talmudic argument at the level of what this is. So I don't know who's going to win. I think OpenAI is all in on their Napsterism. You know, it's kind of like we've got like Napster never had the backing and the funding that OpenAI has. So they're going to fight this thing all the way to the death, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting argument that will keep lawyers spinning around the carousel effectively forever is if you take the physical metaphor around what the AI proposal and what it does is, it's the world's largest library and repository, right? That is synthesizing and resynthesizing people going in and out of the library. And who is to say what people are doing with it and where is that line between personal use, fair use, slightly crossing over into some pseudo commercial use case or a commercial theft use case or IP use case. And it all kind of gets blended, just like if the three of us go into the library and check out the same book or reference point to suck in that information, then who's to say what, how do we know what our end game is with that information? And to your point about the atomization of that information, that's already happened with the previous precursors of what our desktop and mobile technology does, right? Sits with us all day long. It feeds us information, our news feeds, our social feeds, all these different things. And it's a big sort of muck of what is fair use or not, right? So I don't know if we'll ever get to the end game, except that lawyers and we'll just continue to make a living doing it and dealing with it.
So let's bring in Shelly's in the green room, and
this will be a fun one.
He would love to weigh in on all these topics.
Absolutely. Morning, Shelly.
Hey, kiddies.
Hey,
How
great
are
to
ya?
see you, Shelly.
Good to be seen.
I would say you are one of the unofficial mayors of CES and many other important things that you do in your life's pursuits.
Well, I don't know. We're definitely gonna have some fun at CES. That's for sure.
All right. Well, CES is next year, right? I mean, the beauty of CES is you get a peek the first week in January of all of the electronics and all of the major news. However, of course, a lot of major players don't exhibit there because of their own developer conferences. So
Sure.
that was something that started happening, I don't know, a dozen years ago, but really picked up steam. And now a lot of those companies have a very low profile at CES. So that said, CES is the rest of the world, and you really get a good taste of what people are thinking is going to be important in 2025. But let's talk about 2024 because this was an extraordinary year, and so many things have happened. The most obvious one is that AI has asserted itself as a revolutionary technology that is going to permeate, like the internet, like mobile computing, everything that we do. It's
Yeah,
going to change the way that we behave.
a favorite phrase of mine: technology is meaningless unless it changes the way we behave. Look, you can at CES this year. We will still smell the paint drying on the letters AI on every exhibit booth. You're going to see AI-powered toothpicks and toaster ovens and who knows what.
The jump the shark kind of applications.
But the nomenclature that fell further away, metaverse, right? So in 2026, will AI be the crust of that, right? I don't think so, but
it's interesting. We're already seeing a kind of an interesting shift away from the promiscuous phrase generative AI to just AI.
Hmm.
And you get the West Coast talking about AGI almost exclusively now, which is undefined. At least there's no agreed upon definition of AGI. Artificial general intelligence, for those who don't know the initialism. And the reasoning engines are the new kind of hot thing for everybody. You know, what are the cool kids doing? And it's what the cool kids are doing is some version of reasoning engines. And then the hot topic, if you drive down the 101, you will see every billboard talking about agentic software or multi-agent tools or what have you. So there are branches. So Ted, it's hard to know realistically if we are on the AI journey. It's the nomenclature that has yet to really lock in. No one knows what to call anything. Everybody's calling everything whatever they think is a good idea. You know, you've got artificial super intelligence, artificial general intelligence, you've got multi-agent, agentic. Uh, you go down the list of things. People are still talking about transformer diffusion networks as separate things from transformer networks, as separate things from diffusion networks, and like a lot of people using these terms as if they're somehow interchangeable or willy-nilly. And it's, like I said, it's so promiscuous and they're so undefined in the general population. They're terms of art to engineers, but they're not terms of art to the way in the way people are using them. What we're going to see over the next little bit is everybody who can figure out a way to orchestrate workflows and processes that are very vertically tuned will do so. And what I mean by that is right now, if there's a brick wall that is a mythical brick wall that the West Coast is supposed to have run into, the law of diminishing returns is supposed to be here.
Hmm.
And the LLMs in their large language models in their all their glory apparently have hit a wall, and they're not going to get better without vast more data and vast more compute, and no one thinks there's more data available, and no one knows how to, like, there's all of this mythology around what is and what isn't. So the reasoning engines, in theory, in popular culture wisdom, are an attempt to find another way, a different way to accomplish the outcomes without just having to throw more data and throw more compute at the problem. Although I think reasoning engines take a lot more compute than the large language models do. But notwithstanding the above, if AI got no better at all than it is right now, literally, this is it. This is the top end of the spectrum. It can never get better. We're still 5 to 7 years away from feeling the productivity increases that you could get right now with using the tools right now if they were properly orchestrated and integrated into the workflows and processes that you would invent to take advantage of the productivity. What I mean by that is, on just as when a plain human being, when a subject matter expert uses any of the tools, GPT-4o, Claude from Anthropic, Llama from Meta, Gemini from Google. It doesn't matter which one you're using. Copilot, maybe not so much, but the others for sure. You get somewhere between 10 times more productive, and that's not hyperbole, to like Harvard University says 40% more productive. My experience is if you're good at your job, you'll get 5 to 25% more productive.
My experience is 75%. So
There you
4-hour
go.
job takes an hour.
Yeah, and so in practice, if you're great at your job, you get a lot more productive. If you're
Right,
good at your
because
job,
you
you get
have to
more
know
productive.
it's the opposite of what Pablo Picasso said, that computers only give you answers. You have to be a subject matter expert. You have to basically know the answer in order to effectively use the AI.
That is, at the moment, that's right. And look, if you suck at your job, you're still going to suck. Like
Right.
this isn't going to help.
Exactly.
So, assuming that everybody gets up to speed with being some percentage more productive, I don't know how much, just more, then there's no point in being that more productive using old-fashioned workflows and processes. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to reinvent the workflows and the processes to take advantage of the new productivity. Okay, that's going to take a hot minute to get across all enterprises everywhere, assuming this stuff didn't get any better at all. And then what everybody's going to try to do, because they're already trying to do it, is you're going to choose a vertical, something very specific, analyzing emails for lawsuits at this level against this set of tests. Someone has to build that system, and that's all it does. And it's fine-tuned and
They have to build
post-trained to
it, they have
do
to sell
that.
it, they have to teach it.
all that, and they have to fine tune it and post train it and continue to post train it
I
and
know
get
people
it to.
were wondering why it took XR so long to insinuate itself into workflows that it could obviously help.
Right.
But the problem was it was obvious only to us.
Right. And so at the end of the day, again, with all of the hyperbole and nonsense out there, we are still years away from just taking advantage of where we are. And it is, while, yeah, the guys on the West Coast and all the hyperscalers and the model builders and the frontier model builders are admitting out loud that they've sort of got to a point where more data doesn't equal the same kind of improvement. It still equals some kind of improvement. Maybe not what they were getting, but some kind. We have to catch up. Like all of business has to catch up. And we're nowhere near that. We're like, we're not only not, and I would argue we're not near that at all. Like nothing, no business that I'm working with.
My
is at this
anecdotal life experience is that it's hard for us to understand how little understood this is among even the educated, supposedly first adopter class. And so,
I
you
agree.
know, anybody who thinks AI is taking over the world ought to go to a cocktail party with doctors and lawyers standing there saying, "Well, what's up? Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Your AI is so powerful. What the hell's it good for?" So,
Well, you know what's
that's only because they don't see it yet.
what's interesting, and I tend to be the one that waxes using a little historical reference point to find why these things are happening. So as you guys were talking, I was sort of thinking back and looking back on things like Lotus 123 and then Lotus Notes and then the beginnings of Microsoft Word and spreadsheets and Excel and FileMaker Pro and all these things that are essentially just born off the use case of silicon, right? And what they called the PC, the personal computer. And there was interesting debate points in the 80s, mid to late 80s into the 90s about, well, PCs have kind of run their course. They've sold as many as they're ever going to sell. The industry is done, right? And there were things on like morning talk shows where they'd bring in different people, experts, and one would say, I don't think so. I think there's more to come. And the big experts were like, no, we watched the sales trends, we can check the marketplace, and we think that the era of the PC is over. Everybody that's bought one has bought one, except what, to your point, Shelly, about human behavior, what they never got right was that as behavior changes, people find the devices and the software packages that alter their worlds, right?
Right.
And everything we do now, including the device that we're all on right now to do this, runs off this binary compute system. And all of those software packages are the precursors to these agents, to these various things that use those plus, right? And this giant scraping of the data universe to form, sometimes right, sometimes wrong, to answer the quotient, the dynamic
The other
of
thing
what
that
our
people
day-to-day
are,
life is.
yeah, and the other thing people aren't taking into account is that I was at lunch with the CTO of Dun and Bradstreet a few weeks ago, and he said to me with a straight face, they are processing 5 exabytes of data per night.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's being generated globally for a company like Dun and Bradstreet to sort of chomp on. You want to sit back and just talk about the amount of compute you need to have at your disposal to even ingest 5 exabytes of data, let alone analyze it.
Right.
So, and just to let me size that number for you. Estimates have it that from the very beginning of humanity to 1986, the total amount of data created by all of humankind didn't equal 5 exabytes.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're creating 5 exabytes a night. So if you're thinking you're running out of data, you may be, but what we're not running out of is dynamic data. And the most important thing is the exhaust that comes out of this device. Because every day, like we couldn't live in the world we live in right now if we hadn't been generating this amount of literal data exhaust for people to chomp on. I mean, Facebook and Google live and die, literally all the data elite companies live and die by the amount of data we churn out every day that we think nothing of and they make a living off of. People are talking about who's going to be Google for this, who's going to be Google for that. Folks, are you kidding me? It's Google. You've been logged into Google for 20 years. They know how you type.
Yeah,
They literally understand how you move your mouse. You have to, like, no one else has that data set. OpenAI has the greatest model in the world what are they going to feed it with when it comes to being useful to me? I'm not giving up my personal data, my private data now. Google doesn't need me to give up anything. They've been
Yeah, they already
watching me.
got it.
They've
They
been
already
watching
got
me
it.
on Chrome for 20 years. Like that,
Exactly.
you know. And by the way,
They know the names
Meta
of your grandchildren.
and what they look like, and Meta does too. And you know, Amazon knows everything I ever purchased, like literally ever that matters. And more importantly, all these companies know us post-pandemic, which is really important because all the pre-pandemic data about us being shoppers and us being consumers is nonsense.
Yep.
There's nothing about our lives is the same post-pandemic with respect to how we shop, where we shop, what we buy, what we're willing to buy, how we're willing to buy. Like none of that stuff. It's interesting and anecdotal, but it's not going to have an impact. Like, oh, in the old days I used to. You might say that over a beer with somebody, but you don't act that way anymore. So it doesn't matter what you used to do, what you say you used to do. It's what you actually demonstrate.
And all of that has a digital footprint.
All
Every
100%.
single everything. Yeah.
100%.
So okay, 2024. Moving on to some of the other 2024 milestones, because as I said, an awful lot happened in 2024 that it did and didn't have anything to do with AI. But let's go to our what's in our wheelhouse, which is AI and XR. And something that has not been talked about enough is combining AI with frames. Glasses frames are a fantastic platform for AI. And there's a hint of what this might be like right now with the new Meta Ray-Bans. They interface with your smartphones. So if you need a display, you have a really nice one in your hand. But otherwise, you've got sensors on your head that are telling AI where you are and what you're doing. And what's more, it's going to be connected to the web. So if you're standing in front of a restaurant, you could say, hey, does Don's Shakehouse really have good shakes? And they would retrieve whatever Yelp reviews or so forth. And so it's going to insinuate you no longer are you going to need to be glancing at your phone for directions. I think it also has interesting implications for what we have been thinking about as XR glasses, because maybe XR glasses don't need a display.
Well,
So
look,
that's 2024 for me for XR.
yeah, look, a heads up display has does certain things for you and certain things to you. Well, we'll leave it there. Um, at the dawn of XR, people had a very specific set of ideas of what it would do for you and how it would work. And the compute didn't exist, the battery life didn't exist, the displays didn't exist. Like none of it existed. So it's all been pretty much experimental and still for the most part is. Ray-Bans, the Meta Ray-Ban glasses are the first real application. Bose was almost there, but then they killed the product. They killed the
They
project.
lost their nerve.
They did, which is sad because it was really quite a wonderful.
It was a great headset.
And a tremendous platform. But Meta picked up right where they left off, and I don't think people give enough credit to the ability to listen to our world and the audio cues that can be analyzed. You know, you are someone who's vision impaired, and AI is listening as you're crossing the road. It hears things you don't hear, like cars in the distance, and you also get a lot of directional information. There's so much audio that you can take in, so much you can use. To say nothing of things like translation and the ability to look at something and hear it in your language as opposed to something else. So there's a lot to be done there. I think it's still incredibly early days. One of the things I'm sure of is that this is as much a sociology problem as it is a technology problem. I think everyone agrees the end of handsets will be soon, but no one has a compelling replacement for the handset. It has a lot of value. The screen has a lot of value, and the behavior is so ingrained in two, three generations now. I mean, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they're all handset generations. And the way I was a TV generation person, like it took me years to change that habit. And it happened really slowly, but it did happen. First, I would watch a football game on a Sunday. Red Zone shows up. My kids are only interested, adult children are only interested in watching Red Zone and being able to play fantasy football and work their fantasy football stuff on their handsets while Red Zone is playing. I see Red Zone as an affront to my Sunday ritual, which included a couch, salty snacks, and an adult frosty beverage, and a football game. And these things were inextricably linked sociologically. The couch, the adult frosty beverage, the salty snacks, the remote control, because there was usually more than one game on, and I would watch 1 or 2 or 3 football games at a time.
It was a religion.
Satellite, it was. And when I had satellite TV, then when that was brought in, then I had like a lot of games. Here come the kids with Red Zone. Red Zone was a sensory affront because obviously of what it is. But after watching it for about 2 weeks, you kind of go, this is a much better experience. I am loving this. The point is that actually was the gateway drug to a next level experience for me, which is now I have in my bedroom a very nice television set from a very, very well-known television set manufacturer, and it is the best one they make by far. And I paid too much for it, but I wanted it early because I'm that guy. And you know what I do at night now? I put on my AirPods and I pick up my phone and I scroll on my favorite social video service instead of watching television. An entirely new behavior. For the better part of a half century, I went to bed at night, flipped the TV on, watched whatever was on TV, channel surf because you channel surf. The entire behavior changed. I'm old. I'm a TV guy. That was my technology. TV was my tech.
But Shelly, here's a question for you. The thing you're wearing in your face right now, if you could wear that exact thing, which none of these things are there yet,
Right.
and it runs 10 hours a day, and it has full diagonal, 4K, non-headache inducing field of view, human retina resolution, why would you ever pick up your phone again? And why would you just lay down on your, scroll like you're doing now, but now instead of a 5-inch screen, have anything you want? That seems to supersede the thing we're doing now.
Sure, but Ronnie,
if you get that right.
Yeah, if you get it right. In order for that to be true, the number of things, including battery life, compute power, display quality, that need to evolve. And the only thing in that list that I think is farther off than any other is battery life. I'm pretty sure display resolution, we're going to get there. Apple has that interesting patent with the laser that writes on your retina directly to reduce nausea and the headaches because you don't have it makes it 3D without your brain having to try to reconcile the 3D. That was a really interesting patent. That's about 4 years ago they patented that, and I thought that was really cool. I think some of those technologies exist. What doesn't exist is a way to power it for anything more than a few hours, and that's where this whole thing falls apart. Now, I personally believe that Stormtroopers and Darth Vader, the bandoliers were not bullets and or extra laser packs. They were batteries to power the helmets with all the heads-up display stuff in the helmets. That's what I think those guys were wearing. Could I imagine a world where I get a cape, 2 battery bandoliers, and a Darth Vader helmet that has a full heads-up display? I can imagine walking through life with that.
What about the underscoring?
Way sooner than I can imagine this becoming that. I can imagine me being willing to wear a kit on my head that made me look badass and gave me like sensory capabilities at the Darth Vader level. I'm all in on that. Or the Geordie LaForge Star Trek array, sensor array. But if we get out of the science fiction realm and get back to reality, my point was, this is a sociology problem. I'm a TV generation guy who's now a full handset guy. The kids who were brought up dyed in the wool, completely handset kids, and they're generationally handset people. You're going to have to rip that handset from their cold, dry, bloody fingers. It's not that is not going to be an easy lift, especially if it doesn't do exactly for them what the handset does, including, by the way, hide the fact that they're spying on people sociologically. Like the societal norm of I walk in there and I am analyzing you right now with my little peepers, right? Your face recognition, any data I want, like whatever I want to know about you in my own personal databases is now available to me. Okay, so it's great at a party when I know Ronnie's birthday and Ted's birthday and Charlie's birthday. That's cool. Or I know that your kids just had a birthday. Or I know isn't one of your kids graduating soon? Did you guys just move? Yeah, that's great. Except it becomes disingenuous. And when everybody can do it, it's no longer a magic trick where Shelly cares about Charlie or Ronnie cares about Ted. it's everybody knows everything, and now it's all nonsense. So, nobody ever takes into account the behaviors that need to change. This has nothing to do with the tech. This tech could be here today, and it could be perfect, and it would still be rejected. And by the way, there's not for nothing. There is a massive, massive group of people with very big feelings about AI, and they're not positive. They are not positive, and they're not going to be positive.
Well,
They are conflating creativity and execution.
yeah, I
They are
think a lot
feeling
of
John
people.
Henry story, like the machine's going to take over. Like there are people that, and they're not going to be convinced
No.
until like a whole next level nonsense starts to happen. So, we have to be a little careful about predicting the future. Like AR, VR, MR, and XR, they would they're going to follow the path they're following, which is as they evolve, each time they gain a new level of stature, and then, wow, it's good for that. Woo, it's good for that. And at some point, when AI and it get together, when cloud compute, well, I'm going to say it this way. Small language models are more likely to be valuable to XR than large language models. And my reason for that saying that is if I can post-train a small language model that lives locally on a device that's on my person, and the glasses can access that, which I think that's going to happen on the phone. You have the A18 chip in iOS 18.3. Right now, I could literally do it with my current iPhone. I have enough processing power in this $1,500 16 Pro Max. I could very easily display like really good personal information
Well,
of
I
my
mean, you're
own.
going to do a dual process. That's what XReal is introduced.
Yeah,
they're
so
putting a
that's
new
right.
chip on there. They're doing some things locally.
Exactly.
I mean, the 3DOF is mind blowing. I've never seen 3DOF as good as XReal has gotten it with one push screen anchoring. I mean, it
But
turned
at
out
the
to
end of
be
the at
a
the end of the
tremendously hard thing to do, even though
yeah,
when you describe it, it sounds ridiculously simple.
at the end of the day, this is a what data will you have? How will you turn it to make it what will you do to make it actionable? And what is the true value proposition of turning that data into action for a normal person? If agentic tools running on your phone can react to what you see, if you're giving your iPhone sight, if that's all XR did, just gave your iPhone sight and your iPhone was running a local model that was agentic, we have a completely new ecosystem.
Yeah.
I think that's where Meta's going.
Yeah, I think so too. Listen, we're running out of time. I got three subjects I'm going to throw out there as 2024. Okay,
Yep.
number one, the reemergence of crypto and its potential. It just ran up like crazy in 2024.
Yeah.
It's something that a lot of tech guys like Andreessen and Musk, who have a lot of influence today, are very keen on. And I think in general, all of this is tied in a way to the election. Interesting to talk about how technology affected the election or whether it did or not. Um, my point of view is that it affected the election, whether it was used or not almost didn't matter because it helped to undermine a lot of content and make us question what is true or not. And once we're questioning what is true, then mission accomplished because we'll question disinformation and we'll question information. Now, the final thing I wanted to bring up is the whole thing that's going on with TikTok. And incredible that it is about to be shut down. I would expect the Supreme Court will shut it down because of the national security argument. We'll see. It's possible they will have other influences. It's a very political court, so it's going to be susceptible to what the president and his coterie think. The final thing I would say about that is just the implications for censorship of social media are profound. There's not going to be any censorship or regulation with the new administration, which is why tech was supportive of it. Um, but its implication is that you can be censored if we want to censor you. And of course, that is why Meta is trying to exert as much influence as it can, because Meta is the one that should be regulated. Meta is the one that is a threat, much more so than TikTok. The only difference is that Meta is domestic and TikTok is foreign, and I really don't see the difference between two companies trying to invisibly influence how I feel. And so,
So-
anyway, those are my three other 2024 topics.
Yeah. I mean, look, those are all, they're valid thoughts. I think at the end of the day for 2024, if I think about the big, what I think are the big changes, we've gone from how how do you do AI to let's do AI right now. And so from how to now, from an AI perspective, is sort of the big shift from 24 to 25. In 24, we learned that the traditional media business truly is over and totally irrelevant. If I took a lesson from the election, my lesson from the election is that more people watch Joe Rogan than combined all of the traditional media programming about anything. And the influence on 13 to 32-year-old males was absolute because they can't be found on TV except on a football game.
Yeah.
And what is the relevance of a massive network news organization? And as far as I'm concerned, none, zero, nothing.
All of those cable brands have crashed in value.
Not just cable. I'm talking about the entire news cabal of the media business: NBC, ABC, CBS, and their cable news 24-hour opinion channels. None of them
Only
matter.
old people are watching those channels.
It's not, by the way, that's true, but and it's not just the very aged demographic. It's truly, they are irrelevant in the extreme, and that became clear. And I don't think anybody wanted to admit that out loud. And facts and evidence, it's just true. It's objectively true. You can't argue with it. You can feel something about it, but if you look at the numbers, and of course I do because it's the business I'm in, the media business, the traditional media business, is uninfluential in the extreme. It's done, has no more cultural relevance. That's kind of a big change because it's been coming for 50 years, but it was on a kind of an exponential curve. So it was, you didn't really notice it, and now all of a sudden you did. And the numbers don't lie. Will it ever come back? No, it won't. As a matter of fact, you know it won't because Warner Brothers and Paramount Global and Comcast have put their linear channels up for sale. So what we will understand as the media business 12 months from today will not be the media business that you and I are experiencing right this moment. It is done. Stick a fork in it. So that's a big 2024. That, I mean, to me, as someone who teaches communications and, in a comm school and works in this field, been working in technology, media, and entertainment for the last 42 years. That's kind of a big thing that all of a sudden the biggest players are no longer meaningful. And there's a new guard, and the new guard is Amazon and Netflix, who's been with us as new guard, but now has taken its place next to Netflix. And wait for it, when you mentioned the potential TikTok ban, which may or may not happen, we'll see when January 19th comes. But at the end of the day, if they go, the giant winner is the incumbent, which is YouTube, which is Google, which is Alphabet. So now you look at what the DOJ was planning, right? Let's break up Google. Let's get the Chrome browser out of the Google search world. Let's go do what we did to Microsoft. We're going to go do that to Google. Well, I don't know if that'll survive the new administration or it won't. But one of the things I do know is that if they kill TikTok, Google will, it's like that great scene in Star Wars where Obi-Wan says to Darth Vader, "Darth, if you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you ever imagine." Go ahead and kill TikTok and then watch YouTube. Because there will be nothing you can do after that. Nothing you can do. You'll be talking about places that routinely have 25, 30, 40 million views on a given piece of content that the entirety of the traditional media business could only dream of. And you're going to have this in the hands of individuals through one platform. Are you kidding me? You want to talk about crazy, Charlie? The people don't understand.
I mean, that's what I'm scared of. I'm not scared of AI. I'm scared of men.
What we're scared of, if we're honest, is a thing called, that I call, and I think other people may call it too, artificial control. I'm not worried about artificial intelligence. What I mean by artificial control is when you light up Waze to tell you how to go home, you're assuming that it's programmed to take you home the safest, fastest way. What if it isn't?
Yeah, but that ship has sailed so many times now, like that people are so acceptance of what you're calling out, right?
My point.
They don't even think twice about it.
My point, Ted, exactly my point. We don't, it's so woven into the fabric of our lives. Mm-hmm. We literally do not think about it. Mm-hmm. And as this goes forward, if we're looking forward, These are the things we need to be careful about. Careful what you wish for, Congress. Careful what you wish for. You're worried about Chinese nationals. You're worried about the Chinese government and TikTok. It's like, as Charlie said a minute ago, there's some other stuff you might want to look at before you get your knickers into knot about how data is being used. You might
Well,
want to think about how it's being used everywhere.
Shelly, can I just invert the problem on you for a second?
Of course.
Is it all the technology, or is it the human mind itself and human social capability are very archaic? We're full of weaknesses, and every century, different people have built technologies to exploit the masses more and more. Radio, television. You saw what the Nazis did in World War II, and then basically this kind of exploitation of our unchanging, slowly evolving biology. It's this thing that is actually the weak thing that's being exploited. We're just getting better at exploiting it. Isn't there also a need to kind of go, what is it about us that is so exploitable, and why can't we become conscious of it? Because the playbook that was just used has been used for thousands of years. It's simple over and over again. And a group of top elite people think everyone else is dumb, and they're proven right over and over again. And once in a while, you have like a George Washington or Jefferson who focus on the more enlightened side of life. But then you have people that just regress, and they go and they exploit that weakness of the human social animal. Isn't that the thing we need to focus on maybe in 25? Because tech is just going to get better and better at exploiting that same weakness. I don't know if you could ban tech. You have to deal with the human weakness.
So not only are you right, you're 1,000,000% right. Carl Sagan wrote brilliantly. And in fact, in a CES keynote that I gave in, I think, 16, I cloned his voice because he never spoke the words. But the standout sentence was, with our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide almost without noticing back into superstition. And he wrote a whole paragraph about that. America has chosen an incredibly unfortunate decade to make it cool to be stupid. and this has got to change if we are going to benefit from the things that we think we're benefiting from. Because if you do lay complacently your lot in life to the West Coast, if you just let them give you, if people like to say you are the product if you don't know what it costs. No, you are a worker in the mines of Google. You are creating the raw material from which they prosper, and then they use it to their benefit, not yours, unless you happen to own shares in one of the big tech companies, in which case you're doing just fine. So it's like this. You're 100% right, Ronnie. There's no way to say it better than you said it. It's a well understood problem, and those who understand your words do well, and those who don't suffer for it.
Well, man has for its entire existence, for 400,000 generations, been very, very good at killing each other over scarce resources or
Yep.
perceived scarce resources.
Or stories. They do like to kill
Right,
each other.
over mythology or religion.
They like to kill each other with stories more than anything else.
So since the invention of the printing press in 1640 or 1650, man has exponentially evolved. But we are still, as Tom Waits famously said, apes with guns. And now the guns have gotten not just powerful, but deeply complex and personal. So, and it's funny because I don't know whether we're mentally equipped to deal with this amount of change. It's like this incredible experiment going on in real time, and we're standing there watching it with our mouths hanging open.
Truly, Charlie, it goes like this. We are November 30th, 2022, when ChatGPT became a consumer product. We began the generative era, and we are no longer the sole writers of our history. We're now we're 2 years plus into the generative era, and what you find online is now very likely not to be written solely by a human being, to be co-written by some kind of AI. There is a really interesting shift that's going to take place over the next few years, where mediocrity and quality become the intersubjective reality of what is good and what is bad is going to become extremely unimportant. except in a particular vertical against a particular target that can only be sliced and diced by AI because it will be too complex there'll be no mass media to get them with. And like, if you think about the way the 20th century was built, if you think away the way mass production, the ability to make 10,000 cases a day of Coca-Cola that are exactly the same, the interstate highway system to get those cases of Coca-Cola to distribution centers every single day, and mass communication, the three networks that were able to tell everybody drink Coca-Cola, and they did, that system is now gone. You have the interstate highway system, you can move stuff, and the brands still exist, but there's no way to tell everybody. You have to tell individuals. And so every single marketer is marketing to individuals now, where they used to market to audiences. And an audience, even a big audience, is so small right now that for a national organization or a multinational organization, the economics get really messed up. So no one is dealing with this on its face right now. The stock market's looking like it's killing it because of stock buybacks, but the stock market is not reality. The stock market is the stock market. So we, as you know, if you're looking for investable theses in 2025, what you need to do is what you've always needed to do. You need to lay out a couple of things that you believe and invest your resources against them if you truly believe them. Anything that can be hacked will be hacked. Do you believe it? What will you do tomorrow? What resources will you apply to that you wouldn't have today if you believe that? Anything that you can talk to will talk back and understand you. Oh, okay. Do I believe that? So, like if you believe the XR thesis that you're laying out there, that, XR is going to do this, this, and this, put your money where your mouth is, if that's what you believe, because that's the only way you can actually go forward with a plan in 2025. It's not, you can't look at the whole picture and say, I know what's happening. I don't think anybody's that smart. The variables are too great. It is way too fluid. But you can look at the things you know deeply and know well, at least what you believe you know well, and say, okay, look, I think this is going to happen. Here's the range of things that could happen. Let's play the numbers. Let's do 55 across the numbers, as a good craps player would do, and see what happens. Because otherwise, you're just going to be in one or two places. You will be completely out of it, just petrified with fear and not working, or you'll be like spreading yourself too thin. I really think this is a time for people to go deep on the things they know. And one thing I'll say about AI that we haven't really talked about enough is that human beings are magic, and AI is an amplifier, not a democratizer. It looks like a democratizer on the surface because it gives Charlie, Ted, and Ronnie, and Shelly artistic abilities we don't have when we pick up an India ink marker. Like, it draws pictures better than we do. On average, it draws pictures better than anybody does. But everybody has it. It's a fully commoditized capability. So what's not commoditized is, I've known Ted since the earth was cooling. Ted is a subject matter expert, super deep. Charlie, so are you. Ronnie, so are you. Like, what you guys know, that you are wizened warriors. When in the trainings that we do, our corporate clients, you'd think the younger people would do better. They don't. Because when you
My
bring more
students
to
don't
this
know
tool,
what's inside their smartphone.
when you bring an expert to a large language model, the output is expert. When you bring a neophyte to a large language model, you get nonsense out the other side. So or you get democratized mediocre, the best mediocre ninth grade expository writing
Exactly.
you've ever
Guaranteed to
seen,
be 3 times as long as it needs to be to convey information.
and saying the same thing 14 times over. So at the end of the day, while that will get better, what needs to happen is people need to understand that human beings play a real part in this, and understanding where the technology is and where it's likely to go over the next, call it 6 to 12 months. I don't think you can plan farther out than that. I think that's what everybody should be doing, and they should do it with their own point of view, not mine, not yours, not anybody else's. Like, keep your own counsel on this, because nobody's got the right answer, Charlie. Not me, not you, nobody. None of us have the right answer. All you can do is frame the problem and do your best to try to solve it.
Shelly, Roni, before we go, Roni wants to know if you want to come on the show every week.
If only time would allow.
Well, thank you for coming. This has been a fantastic conversation, guys. I was so excited about this show. I knew it was going to be great. Shelly, every time I talk to you, I learn things. Thank you. Thank you. And
Such a pleasure.
see you at CES.
You bet. All the best.
All right. Have a great week, everybody. Merry Christmas.